He's not quite a hawk. He's not quite a man. He's Hawkman. Caw-caw!
Well, it's a good thing that this geek history lesson on Hawkman is now in session.
Hello and welcome to Geek History Lesson. I'm Jason the Bird Inman.
I am Ashley Victoria Robinson. Welcome to Your Mind University, because you have stumbled upon the podcast where we take one character, construct, or animal from pop culture and teach you everything you need to know about it in about an hour.
Yes, so today we are talking about Hawkman, because Hawkman just appeared on Arrow and Flash in the Legends of Yesterday, Legends of Tomorrow crossover. Mm-hmm. He will be a main character on Legends of Tomorrow. And just real quick, I want to tell you that this is sort of a combobulated lesson of all the Hawkmans. I'm sort of just sticking with the main one that is going to be featured in Legends of Tomorrow.
Based off what we saw in those episodes.
Yes. The classic one. There are other Hawkmans. Let me tell you, this was the most complicated and confusing geek history lesson. This might be a tie for Fantastic Four.
Wow.
This was so difficult. Like, I had to have so many different browser windows open. Mm-hmm. I had to have 5 or 6 trade paperbacks open at any time. This was insane. Just to make sense of it for me, mm-hmm. to make sense of it for you was so complicated. And also, I want to apologize. I'm getting over a cold, so I might be quite different. And if you hear some sniffles or some coughs, that's totally my fault. That's not Hawkman.
I think you sound awesome, and I'm going to assume that you're just doing an impersonation of the actor, because he has a deep voice.
The actor? Who's the actor?
Falk. What's his name?
Falk Henschel?
Yeah, because he's got that real deep voice. So.
Oh, yes, Shira, yes.
But I'm excited.
He talked down here, Shira. He was down here. What did you think of Falk? Just really quickly.
I only saw the Flash half of the crossover so far, and I actually thought he was so amazing. He was so much better than I expected that character to be.
All right, we'll talk more about him at the end. Let's jump right into the first part of this geek history lesson on Hawkman. What's the first part of our geek history lesson, Ashley?
Oh, it's a 10-cent origin. Where Ashley can pick up a segue. Where we tell you all the basic.
Well, let's relax a little bit and let's have you say that again so we sound professional.
It's the welcome to the 10-cent origin, where we give you all the basic factoids, creators, and aliases for the person we're going to talk about today.
There you go. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Segues. All right. That's how radio works, or podcast works, folks. Hawkman's first appearance was in Flash Comics #1 in January of 1940.
Oh, so the CW aped that correctly by having him appear on Flash first.
Yeah.
That's cool.
He was created by Gardner Fox, who was the writer, and Dennis Neville on the art. Fun fact, creator Dennis Neville modeled Hawkman's costume on the Hawkman characters in the Flash Gordon comic by Alex Raymond.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Yep. So Hawkman is a copyright infringement character right out of the bat.
Woohoo!
His real names have been Carter Hall, Qatar Hole, and there have been many other Hawkmen, but we're mainly going to focus on these two guys.
Okay.
Yep. Now we're going to move into Meet Cute. Ashley, what's the Meet Cute section of our podcast?
Well, the Meet Cute section of the podcast is where we take a phrase from romantic comedy story writing and tell you where we first met the character and how cute it was.
Ashley, how cute was it when you first met Hawkman, or any of the Hawkmen? Where did you meet Hawkman?
The Justice League cartoon.
Oh, when they did the storyline where he tried to invade Earth?
Yeah, because
now that wasn't really Hawkman, although they were alluding to it, because the real Hawkman showed up later.
Right, that's true. But
it's already confusing.
It's already confusing. As I've said many times before, but in case this is your first podcast, a lot of my early comic book reading was kind of Batman based. And so I didn't get to learn about a lot of the extended DC universe until that cartoon came along. And Hawk Girl, who we'll talk about at another time,
Hawk Girl,
features very prominently in that show. And I really liked her.
She's a great character.
I think she's the best on that show. I think that's the best version of Hawk Girl is in that cartoon.
I agree.
And then I I talked to someone at school about it, and they were like, there's a Hawkman. And I was like, no. It's Hawk Girl.
No. The girl came first. Okay.
I know about science and biology. I'm 9. The girl came first. And then he eventually showed up on that show.
And then the girl birthed the Hawkman.
Oh, man, if only. I just hope that's what we have to look forward to.
I like that version better.
When History 101 comes along. Where did you first meet Hawkman? And how cute was it?
I remember meeting Hawkman in there was this Batman Superman magazine that was in a grocery store once.
Cool.
And in the magazine, I don't know even if it was called Batman Superman, but in the magazine they had adventures like drawn in the animated style.
Oh, cool.
But in the animated style, they looked like their modern comic book counterparts. So the animated Superman had a mullet because Superman in the 90s had a mullet.
Barf.
And then they did a Hawkman storyline, and that Hawkman was like the black costume alien version, the Qatar Hole. It's HOL, but I know it's supposed to be Hall, but I want to say Hole every time I see it.
Just so that people who are listening can understand the distinction.
And I remember reading that storyline and being like, oh, he's got a cool costume. That's about it. And I didn't really pay attention to him after that until Wizard Magazine, when Wizard Magazine started talking about Geoff Johns is bringing back Hawkman, and oh my God, you got to read it.
Oh, I remember when that happened.
Yeah, when he brought him back at JSA, which we will get to. So now let's move on into the History 101 section. What's that, Ashley?
Yes, it is the main meat of the lesson where Jason is going to teach you everything that he managed to cobble together about Carter Hall Hawkman.
Let me just say one thing.
Okay, one thing. Only one.
Get ready for the retcons, baby. I do not think there is a more retcon character in all of comic books.
And we've done lessons on Spider-Man and Fantastic Four.
Oh my God. Okay, now a lot of this is me summarizing it just to make it make sense. That we're going to do a lot of skips and jumps past time. This is the ability to make you understand as much Hawkman history as we can. And
we're picking out the most important stuff because, as we all know, especially in these old characters, there's a lot of stuff that's
pretty silly.
Doesn't matter.
Pretty silly. Okay, here we go.
Hit me up.
So, in the Golden Age, here we go. In the days of ancient Egypt.
That's way pre-Golden Age.
Prince Khufu is engaged in a feud with his rival, the Egyptian priest Hatshepsut. The priest eventually captures both Khufu and his consort, Shaira, and kills them.
Oh.
Millennia later, in 1940 exactly, that exact year, Khufu is reincarnated as American archaeologist Carter Hall, and Shaira as Shaira Sanders.
Sanders.
Hatshepsut himself is reincarnated as a scientist named Anton Hastur, and upon finding the ancient knife Hatshepsut used to kill the Hawkmen, Hall regains his memories of his past life and recognizes Hastur as the reincarnated evil priest.
Side note, already confusing.
Yes.
Second side note, Prince Khufu historically is the one with the biggest pyramid in Egypt.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I did know that.
Fun facts, everybody. So Carter also discovered the mysterious gravity-flying nth metal, too, which is actually a heavy isotope of iron, Fe676, if you want its exact chemical composition.
Wow.
Yep. He also turned this into a belt and then put a bird helmet and wings on, which actually is funny because the bird helmet and the wings are actually completely useless because the belt made of nth metal is actually what makes him fly.
Right, but the Hawk motif is cool.
Yeah,
right?
Hawkman. Ultimately confronting Hastur as Hawkman after Anton. Anton, of course, it gets a little confused because of different names.
Sure.
Anton is Hastur's reincarnated name.
Right.
So Anton captures Shaira.
Okay.
So this made Carter be like, I'm going to put on wings and gaga!
Yeah, totally. Horus.
So Carter encounters Shaira, and during this time he remembers her. And following Hastur's defeat, the two begin a romance. And she also remembers him, and they remember all their past lives.
They remember all the good times.
Yep. Hawkman becomes a charter member of the Justice Society of America, which is the 1940s Golden Age Justice League team. And he takes the position of permanent chairman following The Flash and Green Lantern.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that he led the JSA. That's so cool.
Shaira, meanwhile, adopts the identity of Hawk Girl and fights beside Carter Hall throughout the 1940s.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly enough, Carter Hall is one of the few JSA members that actually joins the United States military during World War II.
Oh, really?
In 1942, Carter enlists in the U.S. Army Air Force.
I was going to say, does he join the Air Force?
Yep, as an airman and serves as a pilot with the 1st Interceptor Command, which
That's
I think
really
is
cool.
interesting because most of the other heroes did not get involved. Hawkman is JSA chairman in 1951 when the team is investigated by the Joint Congressional Un-American Activities Committee. Based upon the McCarthy era,
I know, just un-American activities, a really funny sentence.
And Congress asked the members of the JSA to reveal their identities. The heroes decline, and Hawkman and most of the JSA retire for the bulk of the 1950s.
Yes.
As we've heard in Jay Garrick, The Flash, or previous episodes of our podcast.
So many previous episodes.
Of course, along with all the other superheroes, Hawkman's golden age adventures came to an end when basically the comic book industry was done with superheroes in the early 1950s.
That's so cute.
Yep. And his last appearance was in All-Star Comics number 57 in 1951.
That was a great lesson. I thought you did a lot of really good research.
Yeah, and that's the Geek History lesson on Hawkman. Not as confusing as I made it to seem. But actually, due to the DC multiverse, we will later see this Hawkman on Earth 2.
What?
Which is, of course...
Where all the JSA characters
Well,
go.
it's where all the DC Golden Age characters reside. Yes, exactly. But really quick, well, I'm not going to touch on that much, but I do want to tell you there is one significant development.
Okay.
On Earth 2, Shara and Carter marry, and they have a son named Hector.
Named Hawk Baby?
Well, I think it's kind of Hector Hall.
Yeah.
You know, so there you go. But thankfully, that is not the end for Hawkman because DC editor Julie Schwartz wanted to revive a bunch of heroes, and Hawkman was saved from obscurity.
Ooh, we talked about Julie Schwartz in like every DC Silver and Gold Age character lesson we do.
Julie Schwartz is a big benefactor for why the superheroes came back.
She is badass most.
I'm pretty certain Julie's a man.
Oh, my bad. Sorry.
Let's Google that just to make sure, so we don't sound like complete idiots. I'm pretty certain Julie's a man, but I appreciate your bravado.
I'm going gender neutral in my titles of people.
Yes. Now, following the success of The Flash, Barry Allen, of course, Hawkman was revived in The Brave and the Bold number 34, which was in March of 1961.
He is a man.
But yes, Julie Schwartz is a man.
Sir for Julius.
But you know, again, I admire your enthusiasm.
I'm going for it.
Yes. Now, Hawkman was revived, as I said, Brave and the Bold, but he's different.
Wait, what? Different.
He's different.
Redcon's different. What?
This time, he's an alien policeman named Qatar Hall or Hole.
That doesn't sound that different from an archaeologist.
Oh, well, it gets... Qatar Hall was a police officer from the planet Thanagar sent to Earth to capture the criminal Bith Rock. Having been intrigued by the planet, he returned to Earth to study human police methods, along with his wife, Shayera. On Earth, they adopted the secret identity of Carter Hall, and he became the curator of the Midway City Museum.
I see what you've done there.
And as the hero of Hawkman, he became a member of the Justice League of America, which is Superman and Batman's team. But when Thanagar became a military dictatorship and attempted to invade Earth, the Halls sided with their adoptive world and turned against their own people, thwarting the invasion and destroying their own starship in the process, effectively stranding themselves and making them permanent residents of Earth.
So Julie Schwartz was basically like, hey, you know who people like? People like Superman. Make Hawkman more like Superman.
Well, I think it was a sign of the times because think about it. In the 40s, pulp heroes, archaeologists, you know, something like that.
Like Doc Savage.
Yes. In the 50s, we're all about aliens.
Very true. Very true. Nuclear age.
Yeah. So Julie, I think, saw the sign of the times. Like, get rid of that old pulp stuff. Let's make them aliens.
You're so smart. That's fascinating.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I knew Julie was a man.
Right. You had one up on me.
Bing. So basically, again, Hawkman is now basically the same, except now he's an alien.
Yes. And this, at least for me, when I think of Hawkman,
you think alien?
I think of Thanagar.
Okay, interesting. So, of course, this Hawkman, as I said, became a member of the Justice League of America, where he often verbally sparred with the liberal hero, Green Arrow.
That's right.
Yep. Now, in the 1960s, it was revealed that the original Hawkman lived on the parallel world of Earth 2, and that Qatar lived on Earth 1. And the JLA and the JSA had annual meetings throughout the 1960s and 1970s, which these two Hawkmen met and talked.
Awesome.
So not confusing at all.
No, and they always met up in the annuals. It was basically the only time the worlds crossed over, unless there was like a major crisis.
It was like every
going on.
Thanksgiving. It was every Thanksgiving. Yep.
Yeah, because that's when you get together.
The Silver Age Hawkman, Qatar, had his own series for a few years, but with declining sales, it eventually merged with that of the Atom. And Atom and Hawkman lasted for about another year before the series was canceled. So I think
I've never heard of Atom and Hawkman.
I haven't either. So I think that's kind of fascinating, especially since now the two are partnered on Legends of Tomorrow.
Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then Crisis on Infinite Earths happened. Ashley, in 3 sentences or less, please explain what happened on Crisis on Infinite Earths for any new students that have never listened to our podcast before.
There were too many Earths.
Yep.
DC only wanted one Earth. Then there was only one Earth.
Yep. And to elaborate a little bit more, basically this giant creature named the Anti-Monitor ate the entire universe. And
because he was a baby.
Yeah, he was a baby. And he farted out one universe. And that was Earth 1. And that was the DC Comics that we've been reading since 1985.
Until fairly recently.
Yep. Now, Carter Hall actually survived a few years. Qatar survived, the pronunciations are hard.
It's okay.
Qatar survived a few years past this crisis.
Okay.
Even when DC decided to reboot Hawkman again in a series called Hawk World. Caca!
Which you can find in most quarter bins across the world.
So this means that a brand new Qatar Hall Hawkman just appeared on Earth in Hawk World, when there was already another Qatar Hall Hawkman, and in Earth 2, Carter Hall Hawkman just recently hanging out post-crisis. So now there are 3 Hawkmen.
I have a headache.
And they're all named Carter.
And they all look, I'm assuming they probably all look kind of the same, drawn by the same artist.
The new one looks a little bit different, but it's very confusing. But let me tell you about something that is not very confusing.
Okay, hit me up. I don't want to be confused anymore.
Something that's very simple, and that's the Jawan Comic Drive.
Wait, what's that?
Yeah, now the Jawan Comic Drive is this thing. I used to be a soldier, and I used to love to get gift packages and stuff like that. And I'm trying to send 10,000 comic books to all the overseas troops. Overseas. That's what they are. They're overseas. I stress it twice. By January 1st. Now, I've been doing this for a couple weeks now. It's really cool. We're now over 7,000 comics, which is really great.
That is so many comics.
We need 3,000 more. So, keep pushing, guys, and keep sending your comic books. It's always great. If you want to donate comics, you need to complete these 2 steps.
Okay.
Box and ship the comics to Comics for Soldiers, care of Jawan Comic Drive, 4780 Springfield Drive, Terre Haute, Indiana, 47803. That will be in the description.
It is also pinned to the top of our website and our Facebook.
Yep.
And I think both of our pages as well.
It's at the top of my Twitter, at Jawan, Jawiin. And also, don't forget, send a picture of your comics and the number of books you're donating to the Jawan Comic Drive at Gmail. If you don't do that, we'll have an inaccurate count, and we want to make sure we get to 10,000.
And the reason, someone asked me in an email recently why they needed to send a picture. The reason that we need to send a picture is because we need to know that you've actually mailed them,
yes.
And that's kind of the only way that we can do it, is if you just take a picture of it in the box. Otherwise, you could tell us I'm sending 20 comic books, then I would never know.
I could be Lex Luthor and just be like, hey, I'm going to send 10 comic books. But it's like, if you actually send a picture, it's a little bit of putting in the effort. Mm-hmm. So it's like, oh, maybe they are actually sending those 10 comic books. Okay, we'll take their word for it.
Yes.
So that's a great thing. Go do that. Help us hit 10,000 by January 1st. I think we're going to do it. How awesome would it be if we hit 20,000? That'd be amazing.
Oh my God. So amazing.
So good. All right. So let's go back to outer space.
Ooh, outer space.
So Hawk World was a limited series created by Tim Truman that eventually became an ongoing. And the story of Hawk World is this. Qatar Hall was a young police officer, or a wingman, as they were called on the planet Thanagar, and he was the son...
That's begging to be a movie.
Yep. And he was the son of Perrin Qatar, who helped found the wingman.
Sure.
Hall, or Qatar, was unhappy with the injustices he saw in Thanagarian culture and became a drug addict.
Like you do.
Yep. Before being tricked by his corrupt superior, Bith Rock, into killing his own father.
Hey, that's a name I know.
Yep. Hall was sentenced to a period of exile on the Isle of Chance, where he defeated his inner demons and overcame his addiction before returning to society, exposing Bith, and clearing his own name.
Cool.
Now, Qatar was reinstated into the police, and Hall was partnered with Sheriff Thal. And the pair were sent to Earth as goodwill ambassadors, following the failed invasion of Earth in which Thanagar had participated.
Boo.
Operating out of Chicago, they adopted the costume identities of the then-vanished heroes. See, so there's already Hawkman, Hawkman and Hawkwoman, eventually encountering the originals when they reappeared.
I think it's interesting that they went to Chicago because, DC has a lot of fictional cities. And
Midway City is the Hawkman city.
Yeah, but, in this incarnation, they're in Chicago.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I think it was Tim Truman's attempt to make it very realistic. So they encountered the original Hawkman, and Qatar eventually learned that his father had befriended the original Hawks, Carter and Shiera Hall, when on Earth gathering intelligence decades ago.
Of course.
And then the wingman had been inspired by them.
Ooh.
Qatar also learned that he himself was of mixed heritage. His mother had been a Cherokee woman named Naomi, with whom Perrin had fallen in love with. Just go with it.
Sure.
The primary themes that Timothy Truman focused on in the limited series were basically social inequality and class.
Okay.
And in the series, after relocating the setting of the series from Thanagar to the city of Chicago, Qatar and Shiera were exposed. This is an interesting part. This is the most interesting thing to know about Hawkworld, actually.
Okay.
They were exposed to the founding documents of the United States, such as the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, and the American criminal justice system. Now, neither character was familiar with the concept of natural rights and found the contrast between America's founding principles and the reality of their pragmatic government perplexing. Now, Qatar was inspired by this, and he actually found this new way of thinking. He actually really liked it, and Shiera initially rejected them as unrealistic and unworkable. Yep.
I like her attitude.
Yep. Now, during the series, both characters eventually concluded that the United States was also a hawk world and a predatory society in which the powerful oppresses the weak.
Wow, that feels very topical.
Yep. But they actually came to the conclusion that American society had more to offer in terms of long-term hope for social justice and through its embrace of the natural rights.
Cool.
So
that's very interesting.
It's very heady. That's what you need to get from Hawkworld. That's the reason why I would say if you want to read Hawkworld, that's why you read it.
Yeah.
For that type of stuff. But then 0 Hour happened. Ashley, in 3 sentences or less, what is 0 Hour?
I haven't read 0 Hour, so
we've talked about it on multiple podcasts.
I know, and you always say it, and I'm like, I'm going to remember that for next time, and then I never do.
Okay, your future homework actually is to remember what 0 Hour is, because we talked about it, I think, on like 10 podcasts. Okay. Now. 0 Hour is a 1990s Dan Jurgens event in which Parallax was like,
oh yeah,
I'm so mad that Coast City is exploded. I'm going to remake the whole universe and then Coast City will be back.
Okay, I get 0 Hour confused with Infinite Crisis.
Yeah, there's about 20 years of difference.
And I know that
10 years of difference.
And I know that they're totally different, but because I've never read either of them, I'm always like, which is the one with Wonder Woman?
So basically it's all the heroes fighting Parallax and like time is being resetting. It was kind of a soft continuity reboot for DC. So, but this is where it's going to get really confusing.
Wait.
Yep.
Wait.
A Thanagarian hawk god.
Sure.
Said to hell with it and merged Carter Hall, Golden Age Hawkman, and Qatar Hall, Hawkworld Hawkman, into one being.
Wait.
Just go with it.
Wait.
A being that kind of remembered Carter Hall's life, kind of remembered Qatar Hall's life, but had definite, real, organic wings that could somehow be retracted into his back.
To what end?
Shockingly, here's the thing. Having a character that was part human, that was also a reincarnation of an Egyptian prince, and also the result of a human mating with a hawk-themed alien,
excuse me,
being the avatar of a hawk deity, was not as simple of a character as DC Comics had hoped for the time.
Right. It sounds like some D&D nonsense.
So this character was quickly killed off.
They're just like, nope, we made a mistake. And
this is generally the period of time where people consider Hawkman's history to be so confusing. Mm-hmm. And DC basically took Hawkman off the board.
Wow.
And told all writers, you cannot use Hawkman.
Wow. I mean, I don't know how many people were clamoring to use Hawkman. Actually, but that's really interesting.
There was a very, very powerful and I think great writer who wanted to use Hawkman and DC said no to.
Who?
DC refused to let Grant Morrison use Hawkman in his JLA run.
That's a great run.
It is the best Justice League of America run. Now, this is a couple years after that, but Grant Morrison wanted to use Hawkman. And that is the reason why Grant Morrison created the character of the winged angel Zor-El and made him part of the team.
Okay, so he's like, I can't have Hawkman. I'll make an analog.
There you go. And so in the Wizard special, in a Wizard JLA special, Morrison made an appeal to the fan base. And Morrison said, and I quote, and I'm handing it over to Ashley so that she can read it in the Grant Morrison accent.
I'm going to vamp for a sec. Okay. Morrison made an appeal to the fan base. It's a good name, and it seems a shame to let it go to waste. We're hoping that fans will figure, for God's sake, let's just call him Hawkman and get him into the Justice League as Hawkman, and editors will relent. We're hoping to start a campaign.
Yep. So I had that JLA special.
Do you still have it?
No, I don't think I still have it, but I had the poster that was in it.
Oh, that's cool.
It was great. It was actually published like during JLA's like 10th issue. It was really cool. And he did a breakdown of the characters and he did a breakdown of Zor-El, and basically that's where he said that, where he was like, I want to call this guy Hawkman. I wanted it to be Hawkman, but they won't let me use Hawkman.
So little Jason wrote a letter to DC Comics.
I actually have never written a letter to DC Comics. I never did that because I never thought my letter would ever be published.
Interesting.
So I should have, but I never did.
Oh, well.
I never did. And then we're going to skip along because DC held firm and the Hawkman name went unused for several years.
They were like, no, Grant Morrison, no.
And then came along Geoff Johns. Now, most of Carter Hall's post-Hawkworld history is fleshed out in the pages of DC's JSA and Hawkman Volume 4. Now, these titles were all written by a bunch of different writers, David S. Goyer, Geoff Johns, and James Robinson.
Oh, all huge names.
Now, and they basically retconned Hawkman back into the DC universe. And here's how they did it.
Okay.
According to the post-Hawkworld origin now, Prince Khufu, remember him?
Yeah.
He lived during the reign of Ramses II in the 19th dynasty of ancient Egypt.
I think that's more or less accurate.
Now, Khufu believes that his soul, or his Ka, will not journey on to the land of the afterlife. Rather, his soul and that of his betrothed, Shaira, are fated to remain in the mortal world.
Interesting.
As prophesied by the wizard Nabu. Now, do you know who Nabu is, Ashley?
He's, I was going to say Dr. Doom, but that's totally wrong. He's Dr. Fate.
He's the spirit that resides within the helmet.
In the helmet, yes.
Of Dr. Fate, yes. As prophesied by the wizard Nabu, a spacecraft lands in ancient Egypt.
I see what they're doing.
Prince Khufu and Nabu and the champion Teth Adam. Ashley, who's Teth Adam?
I don't know.
Teth Adam is the ancient Egypt moniker of Black Adam, the Captain Marvel villain.
Oh, I legitimately didn't know that.
who The Rock will play in the upcoming movie.
Oh,
now, these three search the desert, finally coming across the remains of a Thanagarian ship with a hawk-like motif. Nabu casts a spell translating the strange language of the female space traveler, and just before dying, she whispers the words Nth Metal, the name of the substance that powered the downed ship. Teth Adam lifts the ship back to Khufu's palace, where it is studied inside the Temple of Horus, and the remaining Nth Metal is examined, and its most obvious property to these Egyptians is that, it can make you fly, right?
Sure.
The remaining sample from the ship is melted and used to create several remarkable devices, including a scarab that allows Khufu to fly, a deadly knife, and a battle glove referred to as the Claw of Horus.
Cool.
However, the metal strengthens the souls of Khufu and Shaira, binding them together in their love and imprinting them with all the collective knowledge of Thanagar.
Cool.
Although the villainous priest hath set murders the two with the knife made of Nth Metal. And their souls live on in the mortal plane, and they are reincarnated over many lifetimes, always fighting each other, and always repeatedly being killed at the hands of the reincarnated hath set.
Wow.
Now, you can see where they made the changes, and I think it's I
think they're good changes.
And I think it's for the better.
Yeah.
Now, Khufu's soul is reincarnated countless times in different areas, and these are some of the reincarnated identities that have been depicted in Hawkman Volume 4.
Okay.
These include, they're not limited, there's more than this.
Okay.
Brian Kent, also known as the Silent Knight, he was alive during the 5th century of Britain, and the love of Lady Celia Penbrook.
Aww.
Coengrad von Grimm, the son of a blacksmith in the 14th century of Germany. Captain John Smith of the 16th century colony of Virginia.
Of Pocahontas fame.
Yep. Hannibal Hawks, the Nighthawk, a gunfighter in the American Old West and love of cinnamon. And Detective James Wright, a Pinkerton detective in the earliest 20th century and love of Sheila Carr.
Pinkertons, the first American private detectives.
The detectives of the railroads.
Yeah.
Eventually, the soul of Prince Khufu is reborn as Carter Hall, an archaeologist active during the 1940s.
Hey, so we're doing exactly what happened the first time around.
Yep. And now we're back to modern superheroing, and that's where Carter, in this retcon, disappears because of 0 Hour, because 0 Hour sends all the JSA people off to this weird limbo and stuff like that. Now, years later,
okay,
JSA member Kendra Saunders, Hawk Girl, is transported to a ravaged Thanagar by the High Priests. Now, they were seeking a champion to stop the evil Onimar Sin from enslaving the planet. And the priests used Kendra's centuries-old connection to Carter to bring him back to the mortal plane.
Right, because a girl can't be your champion.
That's true. Or they will him back to life. Following this unorthodox resurrection, Hall retains all the memories of his past lives, as well as Carter Hall, the Thanagarian Hawkman. However, Kendra has no interest in renewing the relationship due to the lack of memories of their past time together. She has no memories.
So she's like, I don't know who you are. Exactly. I don't want to kiss your face.
Which is kind of what they're doing in Legends of Tomorrow right now.
Yes.
And then they adventure on with the JSA for a while, and then Blackest Day happens, and they die in the beginning of Blackest Day.
Yes, they do.
And then at the end, they're resurrected at the end of Blackest Day by the White Lantern. And in the final battle, when they're resurrected by the White Light, Kendra is revealed and says that her name is Shiera Hall. And
Wait, what?
And she remembers all her past lives, and she and Carter joyfully reunite.
Aww.
And then the New 52 happens. Ashley, can you briefly explain how we get to the New 52?
There are so many worlds.
Nope.
And DC doesn't want to.
Nope.
No. Barry Allen misses his mom. So he runs back in time really fast and saves her. And then when he runs back to the present day, everything is different.
He resets the entire timeline.
And everyone has really over-designed costumes.
Yep. And we're only 5 years different.
Yeah.
And in the New 52, Hawkman gets a redesign, and his origin is different again.
Yay!
And he is very, very...
This is like retcon 8?
Sure, I've lost count. I've lost count in the multiverse. He has spiky armor. It looks so 90s. It's so over-designed. Anyways, it is revealed that the current Hawkman in the New 52 is actually Qatar Hall, with Carter Hall being his assumed Earth identity. Now, this Qatar Hall is grief-stricken over the death of Shiera, and he tries to rid himself of his Hawkman attire, although the nth metal fuses to him, and Carter obtains the ability to store his Hawkman armor beneath his skin and manifest it whenever he needs it. And then he joins the government team of the Justice League of America to take down the normal Justice League that's full of Batman and Superman.
That's right.
And he has some scenes with Vibe, and that's about it. That's where he is.
Cool.
He's just a super angry guy who goes, "Rah!" and "Caca!"
Cool. That's fun.
In live action, of course, that's it for the comics, but in live action, he's been played by Michael Shanks on Smallville.
Daniel Jackson.
Yep, from Stargate SG-1, who tried to do a Batman voice, and it didn't quite work.
His costume looked really good in still photos when he wasn't moving.
And then Falk Henschel is now playing him on Legends of Tomorrow.
Who Jason awesomely got to meet.
I got to meet. He's a really nice guy. It's still a mystery how those wings come in and out, but we're just going to move on for that. and that's it. Let's move on to recommended reading. That's where we're going to tell you some of the books you should read.
Cool.
And I think there's only one volume of Hawkman that you should read, and that is Geoff Johns' JSA run.
I was going to say that as well.
Yep. So you go collect Geoff Johns' JSA run omnibus. They're in Omnibuy now, volume 1, volume 2, volume 3. And this retcon Hawkman is in there. It's the best Hawkman's ever been. It's the best JSA has ever been.
Yeah.
Go read it.
And go watch the Flash Arrow crossover if you haven't seen it yet.
Well, let's move into a tiny discussion. As I asked in the beginning, like, Falk Henschel.
Yeah.
You said you were very impressed by his performance. Why?
I was super impressed by his performance because, for me, he doesn't really look like Hawkman.
No.
And I mean...
And he's very short.
You can tell.
Yeah.
And we've discussed this before, and the look is definitely not everything, and, like, I'm totally open to, like, gender bending and race bending.
I like their Hawkman
and all
costume,
that.
though.
The costume looks great.
Yeah.
But to me, I'm just like, oh, you're like a short white dude, and I imagine you being kind of a tall white or brown dude, you know?
A white or brown dude.
You know, if they made the Hawkman of the TV show the way that Hawkgirl looks in Earth 2 in the comics, because she's brown.
Oh yeah.
I would be totally, because they're supposed to be Egyptian.
Yes.
So I would be okay with that as a choice, but so they made him a white dude, and that's fine. And Hawkman's not a character that I have like a lot of attachment to, so I thought that he did a really great accent because he's not American.
True.
And he sounds kind of general. He sounds slightly foreign on some of the vowels.
But as a reincarnated Egyptian, you would hope that they would slightly foreign.
I thought he had really great presence, especially standing up next to Stephen Amell, because Stephen Amell has really great presence. Like, he enters a room and you look at him, and I thought that he did a great job of kind of pulling attention to himself. He doesn't say a lot, but I thought everything that he said felt very impactful and very meaningful. And he, by the end of that episode, I wanted to see more of him, which was honestly, no offense to anyone who loves this character, but just never something I ever expected to feel about Hawkman. So, and
I want to see more of him.
Which has happened to me a lot with these DC TV shows and the Marvel movies, which is awesome. So yeah, I was just like, by the end of it, I was like, oh my God, like, when did Hawkman get this good?
I know. You know, I was having this conversation on the Collider Arrow recap show that I'm on. I was saying that it's so weird to think. How weird is it to think, like, when I was watching Arrow in season 1, I would have never thought that we would have a 4th season episode that would open in ancient Egypt and be about Hawkman. How crazy is that?
Yeah. It's awesome.
It's awesome. We are in a golden age of geeks.
Yes.
Yes. All right, and now let's move on to the final section of our podcast. This is a very short podcast, but you know what? I synopsized to try to get us through it, to power through the multiverse.
It's okay, because next week's is going to be really long.
Oh, really long? Okay, and now we're going to go to the teaching tweet. Ashley, what is the teaching tweet?
The teaching tweet is where in 140 characters or less, we summarize the character we just told you about.
All right, here we go. And this is actually, I have 8 characters left over.
Okay.
I checked it. Here we go. He's a Hawkman. Nope. He's an alien. Nope. He's a Hawkman. Nope. He's this now. Say what? I'm lost. Who are we talking about? Hashtag Hawkman.
Nice.
Yep.
I feel like you wrote a poem there. I love that.
Did I? Oh, that's cool. Well, I'm glad you dug it. And I hope all the people listening dug this mysterious and short and weird adventure about Hawkman.
The Mysterious Hawkman. I would read that title.
The Mysterious Hawkman.
Yeah. Copyright Geek History Lesson.
Okay, Ashley, if they want to learn more about the Mysterious Hawkman on our social medias, where can they do that?
They can do that at geekhistorylesson.com. That is our Tumblr, or they can do it at facebook.com/geekhistorylesson.
Where they can also suggest future lessons if they ever want us to do Hawk Girl, although it'll have a lot of crossover. That's the only downside.
Yeah, but she's important.
Yeah, that's true. You can find us on iTunes, you can find us on Stitcher, and you can now find us on soundcloud.com/Geek History Lesson. Go over there, give us some comments, give us some reviews. That helps other listeners find the podcast just like you. You can find me on social media at Jawin, Jawin. You can find Ashley on Twitter where?
At Ashley V. Robinson.
And don't forget about our Patreon, patreon.com/Jawin with the same spelling, because over there we have the Geek History Lesson extra podcast where only our $5 patrons can listen. And this week it's going to be all about, can a solo Hawkman TV show actually work?
Ooh.
But you got to be a patron over there to help support, help keep the lights on over there. Thank you guys all for listening. I hope you enjoy this super short yet super Egyptian lesson that we just gave to you. I'm Jason Inman.
I am Ashley Victoria Robinson, and Prince Professor Alien Jason. Will you please take us away?
The class is dismissed. Let it be written. Let it be done.